All right. So it is 2 p.m. Central Time here in absolutely gorgeous Omaha, Nebraska today. I feel like
Today.
I always comment on the weather whenever we start these. It is actually like a 10 out of 10 day here in Omaha. If you haven't been outside, Margaret, you need to get outside after our call. I just stepped outside. It is beautiful out. Anyway, this is our standard Tuesday talk. You and I visit once a month. Just wanted to cover some housekeeping items for those of you that are listening live on the call. If you hover near the bottom of the screen, there's a Q&A button that you can click on in which you can type in a question. I will watch the Q&A box, Margaret, so you don't need to watch it. If a question comes up, then I'll make sure that I get it asked, and then you can answer over the course of the next 30 minutes. Okay. And those of you that are listening live, we love audience participation. So please, please, please type in a question and I'll make sure that I get it asked and we get it answered. Okay. Without further ado, I'm Jen Chaney. I'm the Vice President of Franchise Development. Margaret, would you mind introducing yourself, please?
Pleasure to join the call. My name is Margaret Haynes. I am the CEO and President of Right at Home.
Okay. Thank you. And I'm just going to jump right in here. So timestamp, it's March. Actually, that's a lie. It's April.
It's hard to believe. It's hard
I
to believe.
know.
Yeah.
Q1 is over. It is April 2023. Q1 just ended. So why don't we just start by talking about all of the really great things that happened in Q1 here in 2023.
Yeah, so there's a whole laundry list. I could talk probably for more than 30 minutes on just,
I
some of
know.
the things that have gone in Q1, but let me kind of pick some of the really big highlights. So, certainly from an overall network perspective, when you think about coming into the year, I always talk about like the watermark of like where we started coming out of the last year in terms of number of hours. So how many lives are we touching on a weekly basis in terms of out there providing services? And so that watermark was at about 400,000 hours weekly. And we have stayed above that watermark since the beginning of the year and continue to increase the number of hours on a weekly basis. And that's a wonderful thing because, again, that's what I look at because that means we're touching more lives in a really meaningful way. Certainly, when I look at the goals that we've set through the organization, we're definitely on track in terms of revenue as well, and not just hours, but also revenue. And obviously, as business owners, we're constantly talking with them about how is their business growing, and we're seeing business growth. Because we want to make sure we know that if we don't have franchise owners that are building sustainable, profitable businesses, then certainly that doesn't allow us as a corporate office to grow and as a brand to grow. And at the end of the day, we want to touch many lives. When I think about from a development perspective, so even how we've been expanding the footprint in just the first quarter, you and your team, Jen, have done just a fabulous job crushing your goal this year, because again, it's really important for us to continue to plant new flags across the US and fill those open territories, because again, it allows us to bring that mission forward. And then I think about even our own organization here. A big thing this quarter is we added a new member to our executive team. And so we now have a chief operating officer, a role that I was fulfilling for many years prior to last year taking over as CEO. So that was a really big win as well. So hopefully I've hit on a couple of those elements. But again, I could talk for a long time about some of the great things that are going on in Q1.
Yes. Okay. So I wrote down a couple of notes and I want to touch on one thing that you said. So you said, hours are growing, revenue is growing, and really watching how our individual franchise owners, how their businesses are growing. And obviously as a whole, that's good for Right at Home in general.
Right.
So for a brand new owner, let's just say, somebody who's listening right now, they're thinking of becoming a franchise owner. They become a franchisee first, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months. What kind of, and this is a very broad question. So how does Right at Home help our individual franchise owners grow their business? So I'm really just looking for like what's the general support that a brand new franchise owner is going to get in the beginning and really ongoing to help them with growth? I know you're like, oh, I could also talk for more than 30 minutes about that. But just looking for a general response for you, like, what kind of general support is a right-at-home franchise owner going to get, and how do we support our franchise owners with their ongoing growth?
Yeah. So again, to your point, I could talk for a long time about that, but I really think what you're hitting on is the primary reason why you would join a franchise network to begin with, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is, okay, I can have a business of my own, run it, but I don't have to be in business by myself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what we think about when we think about supporting our offices. So from the minute you come on board and you're even exploring, you're going to get great support from Jen, you and your team in terms of the development directors of trying to help an individual think through this big decision of, gosh, do I want to get into home care? And do I want to get into home care, obviously, with right at home, which I'm biased. And I think that that's the best choice of all choices out there. But it starts there, right? And then once you become a franchisee, then we have a whole program that we call the Right Start program. And that's really intensive support with an individual that's going to help you shepherd through those initial things. Because we recognize no one comes typically with any strong background of having already ran a home care company, right? They have lots of experiences, and it may be in healthcare or other, but you're really learning something new. And how do you build this right at home brand in your local market, and what does that look like? So someone will come alongside you to really help you navigate that. And then once you actually open your office, then you move into kind of our core support structure where you'll have a business performance coach, someone that is there thinking about every day with you, how do you build a sustainable, profitable business? And while that one individual is a conduit for you in terms of as you navigate and progress as an owner in the system, it's not just that one person that you get support from. It's actually the entire network. So we have an entire group of individuals here. We kind of organize ourselves around centers of excellence so that based on what challenges you may be facing, we can deep dive with you with some expertise around how to do that. But the entire network, so the other franchise owners, those that may be, geographically in the same state as you, are there to help support and lift you up. And that's the one thing I love about our network is we have such a collaborative environment and culture in which we recognize we're all here to ultimately lift each other up and help us each other build those sustainable, profitable businesses.
Awesome. I love it. We had a question come in as you were talking or as you were answering that question, and I'll read it word for word. What big plans do you have for Q2 that will affect franchise owners?
So Q2, well, lots of big plans. So trying to think.
Margaret, we've already come up with like 3 separate topics that we can talk about for future 30-minute calls here. I need to start writing all these things. You could also talk about this one for more than 30 minutes.
Yeah. So I'm going to answer it in a couple different ways. So we have an entire strategic plan that we are focused on, and we put together, we think kind of in 3-year increments, recognizing that, things will change. And what we're going to do 3 years out will be very different than as we look hindsight 3 years out, what we got accomplished. But it's all around driving growth. So how do we continue to increase hours and help our owners continue to grow their business? It's around innovation and what do we need to do from innovating around the business model, but also innovating around recognizing some of the challenges in the industry and how the industry is changing. How do we bring innovation in to help supplement what we need to get done? It's around how do we continue to build our company-owned side of the house, because that helps with innovation and gives us those test kitchens that allows us as an entire network to be more nimble. And then how do we infuse quality and just kind of operational performance on a regular basis to elevate the overall network. So that's very broad brush. But in Q2, one big thing that we're going to be focused on is we're getting ready to go into our annual meeting. And that's something that we've been doing a lot of planning for. But the end of this month, we are bringing the entire global network together and have over 500 individuals that are coming together. We're going to descend on Orlando and actually spend 3 quality days really focusing on the business and learning from each other and learning from experts and recharging our batteries and celebrating some amazing accomplishments across the entire network. And so that's a big lift there. But we also have continued growth goals that we're focusing on in Q2 to ultimately continue to drive against those big strategic goals that I just talked about.
Yes. And so the question was, what I believe it said, what big plans do you have for Q2 that affect franchise owners? And I would argue that literally everything that we do is around our franchise. Yes. But you touched definitely on the big plans, and overall our strategic plan, not just, obviously we're going to continue to work on that in Q2 and the rest of this year, but we're thinking several years in advance, which any big company has to do if you're hyper focused on growth, which we are. So let's talk a little bit more about home improvement, which is that's the name of our annual conference. I'm not sure if you actually said that when I first started working for Right at Home and somebody said that, I'm like, what is home improvement? What does that mean? Like,
I have a story about that too when I first started.
Yep, that's the name of our annual conference. Very clever. But why don't you touch, if you can, on some of the things that, and I know there's a lot of things that we talk about at home improvement, but thinking through the focus of the listeners on the call right now and how it will be helpful for them once they become franchise owners to attend home improvement.
Yeah, so it is so critical as a franchise owner to attend that meeting. And, when you first get started, I can appreciate the sense of, well, gosh, I'm just getting into the business and, I maybe don't know as much as everybody else. And so maybe I don't want to go to home improvement because it's hard to walk away from my business for a few days and kind of have to, manage it from afar. But my message to those new owners is there's been hundreds of people that have taken those same steps and walked in those same shoes as you before, and they can attest to the value that comes from staying active in home improvement. And we have franchisees that have never missed a home improvement, and those that maybe have would say that have started off always going every year to home improvement would say if they had to miss one, it was really painful and they immediately got back to it because they extract so value. But if you never start that engagement, you're going to miss so much. And because it's such a wonderful opportunity to really learn from all your peers, I can promise you, you will walk away, and it doesn't matter how long you've been in the network, with 2 or 3 really solid nuggets of something new to try in your business to address maybe a challenge that you're having. Because while sometimes you may feel like you're in an island on your own, that's the beauty of a franchise network. You're not on an island by your own. And this is an opportunity to not only re-energize your own battery in terms of either doing some own personal development, because we bring in speakers that not only speak to how do you grow the business, or panels that are made up of franchise owners of things that they've done and tried that have worked really well, or lessons they've learned, or way in which they're getting to engage with caregivers differently and really increase, their caregiver pool that they're able to pull from, which is a challenge that everybody's facing right now as a workforce. So how do I speak to that workforce? But you're also getting an opportunity to just do personal development and ways to maybe just recharge your own battery as a business owner, but also bring your own staff with you, because we also carve out time and topics that are really critical to different roles within the office itself. And if you're new, you can start to understand, well, gosh, what are those different roles as I start to grow that I'll infuse into my business as the business grows itself.
Okay, so you answered a question that came in, and it actually says, is it important to bring office staff to home improvement? And that's something that I don't think a lot of people know. Like, the annual conference isn't just for our franchise owners. It's definitely applicable to the office staff of our franchise owners as well, and just as beneficial to the team as it is to our franchise owners.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So a couple times you have mentioned, on the first question you mentioned it, and then even on this question, how important it is to be connected with fellow franchise owners and
Mhm.
receiving that peer support.
Mhm.
Can you talk a little bit more about that? And not only, and it's something that we talk a lot about on the franchise development team with people interested in franchising, that not only are you going to receive the help and the support and the guidance from the staff here at the corporate level. I mean, that's one of the many benefits of franchising. But keep in mind, you have fellow franchise owners that you are going to receive just as much help and support and guidance from, that you're all in this together. Can you talk a little bit about why that is so important and some of the different ways that we encourage peer support from franchisee to franchisee?
Yeah. So it is so important because, again, those are individuals that are walking in the same shoes as you are today. So while your business performance coach is going to bring lots of value to you, and they actually will hold like state calls is one example. Well, they'll get everybody from the same state on a Zoom call like we're on. And that is an opportunity for owners to just engage with each other and share best practices. And there's, set topics that come from, each state call is a little bit different in terms of what maybe is top of mind for those franchisees in that particular state. But that's one example where the business performance coach is going to help infuse that engagement franchisee to franchisee. But we also have other ways. So we have performance groups, and that's something that is critically important. And we are constantly talking about encouraging franchise owners. We have about half of the network that's involved in a performance group. And that's where we've got groups of, 8 to 12 franchise owners that have a facilitator that comes from the corporate office that get engaged and benchmark their data and talk about burning issues and things that are keeping them up at night and best practices on a quarterly basis. 2 times a year, they actually get together face to face and spend a couple days working with each other and holding each other accountable and encouraging each other and sharing best practices. But they also will benchmark their data on a quarterly basis to really, spend time working on their business, not just in the business. But we also are encouraging all the time, and some of our best ideas actually come from the network. And so we have Takeoff Tuesdays, where every week we're hosting from the corporate office a webinar where people can join. And it's not just franchise owners. We'll tell you what audience it's geared towards, but a lot of times it's individuals in the field that are sharing their best practices during that time. And then we have other ways in which you can engage on a regular basis with your peers. Because at the end of the day, that is really a great way to know you're not alone, but also just talk about what great things are happening and sharing those best practices.
It is. And I love the peer-to-peer support that I see happen throughout the system. It's just awesome. Lots of questions about performance groups as you were talking. I'll combine this one into two.
Okay.
Are performance groups based by revenue or by location? And are most of the owners in performance groups?
Yeah, so we have, as I mentioned, I think we have about 50% when I think about the total number of franchises. We have 50% of the network right now that are in performance groups. And, you would say, well, gosh, Margaret, why isn't it 100%? If it's such a wonderful thing, why isn't it 100%? But you have to be in the right mindset in order to actually join a performance group. And it's a commitment. You're going to make a commitment to benchmark your data. You're going to make a commitment to attending the face-to-face meetings and the Zoom meetings in between those. But I will assure you, it is a commitment that will pay back in spades in terms of being involved. So from that perspective, that's kind of the how many are in the performance groups. What was the second half of the question, though?
You already asked the first part. Are most
Yep.
of the owners in performance groups, and are they based on
revenue versus
or
yeah, so it really is a mixed bag. So we do have a couple performance groups that are state based in terms of, because we have so many franchisees in a particular state, they have decided they want to start a group that's just based on their state. But I would say that the majority of our performance groups are a hybrid. They're a mixture, all coming from all different geographic locations. And I think that really is the best, because we do a lot of state focused things anyways, but it gives you a breadth of things that are working on the different coasts and, south and west and north and east and central, and gives you a broader perspective. And then in terms of size, again, it's kind of all over the board. We have a couple performance groups that started in 2012, which is soon after I started with the company, and they're still operating today. So they are very tenured franchisees that have built really large businesses. But at the same time, performance groups can shift their mix from time to time. So we have new groups that get started. That's a combination of lots of different sizes and tenure. And then we also have opportunities. We've had some franchisees that through time have moved from one performance group to another. And it's just based on a need and a gel. And it's all around kind of making sure you've got the kind of mix and that owners feel comfortable with each other as they're working through those performance groups and really diving deep, because you get really kind of personal in those performance groups in terms of what's the good and the bad and the ugly going on in their particular business. And so there has to be a level of trust there as well. But it's an experience that I promise if you dive in, you're going to benefit from it. And not only what you can get from the group, but actually what you'll bring to the group as well. The group will benefit from you.
Okay. So, and Ed, I'm going to ask this question on the fly because I actually had somebody interested in franchising with Right at Home ask me this question a couple days ago regarding performance groups, and he may be listening. So he asked, why can I join a performance group right out of the gate? And I was like, well, we do like you to be, in operations for, a certain period of time, just because we want you to, establish the business, work the business, and get some like financial performance on record. Because once you go work with other performance groups, those are things that you're going to talk about. And you really don't have much to talk about unless you've been an operator for whatever period of time. So can you just comment on that? One point right there, why don't we let franchise owners join a performance group he's like, I don't understand. They sound awesome. I want to join one right away. I'm like, I also want that, but there's a reason why we have you wait just a little bit.
Yeah, Jen, and you hit on, one of the primary reasons is that, in the performance, they do benchmarking. So they do quarterly benchmarking of operational metrics as well as financial metrics. And so just starting out, you don't have those metrics yet, right? Yeah. So you're just starting to build that history. So we say, you really need that first year to be able to then start benchmarking. But here's the great news is before you actually join a performance group, your business coach is going to be preparing you to join a performance group. And one of the things that we do from a preparation perspective is actually having you start to engage with the education side of it. So Profit Mastery University is a third-party education tool that we use with new owners, and it starts to get you to understand the lingo and get the financial backing and background that says, let's take the mystery out of a balance sheet and the mystery out of an income statement and really help you understand the fundamentals. And even if, someone that comes from a financial background, I came from an accounting background. And yet when I took that class, I'm like, oh my gosh, I wish someone would have explained it that easily to me when I was getting my accounting degree, because that would have it was like light bulbs went off. And so we've seen that over and over again. So while we'll tap you when it's time, and there's a whole checklist that we kind of go through saying, are you ready to join a performance group? And you can do a kind of self-assessment. Your business coach will be tapping you along the way, but they're going to be preparing you to actually join that group when it's the right time. So it's not like you just completely have to not get excited about it. We're going to build that excitement from day one.
Okay, awesome. And if he's not listening, then I'm going to make sure that he sees this recording.
Yeah.
So the way you described it was much better than me. Okay. So another question came in, not really related to the performance groups, but definitely relevant. And this is a frequently asked question that we get a lot, Margaret, on the franchise development team. People who are joining the Right at Home system, they're wondering, okay, what's it going to be like after I sign my franchise agreement, once I, open my business? And it has to do with training. So like training caregivers and ongoing training, what does that look like? The question here says, do you have a lot of ongoing training for caregivers?
Yeah, it's funny. I just prior to joining this call was leaving our Takeoff Tuesday call.
Mhm.
And on that, the entire topic was around our online LMS system. And we use a third party that helps bring content and make it available. And so we as a corporate office fund for our franchisees to have access to that core kind of base group of learning modules, things that are necessary so you can meet your state requirements, and you can give those base training series and modules to caregivers to make sure that they're ready to go in the home. But then there's additional modules that you can access, and for $50 a month you access this really broad list of modules that not only hit just what it is to provide home care, and learning more about Alzheimer's and different types of things that are important to know as a caregiver maybe thinks about increasing their career or taking a career journey and learning more. But it's also things around leadership skills and listening skills and things that will be of value to your office staff as well. So there's a whole plethora of different learning opportunities just in that third-party product that we make available, that will help in educating not only just caregivers but office staff, and that continually education and desire to learn more.
And I love that, because we have a lot of people who join the system that don't have any home care experience or business ownership experience. But again, one of the many benefits of franchising, and I'm partial, I know you are too, is that, they're like, I've never been a caregiver before. I don't know how to train a caregiver. Well, guess what? We aren't going to train your caregivers for you. You're going to train your caregivers, but we have a responsibility to make sure that you have all of the tools that you need to do that. We'll make sure that you are good and ready to train your caregivers. We're gonna give you all of the resources to do so.
Yeah.
So then they're relieved after that. Okay, so we've got just a little under 4 minutes left. Is there anything specifically for our listeners that you wanted to comment on as we're just getting into Q2 here? We've got the rest of the year ahead of us here. It's early on in 2023, just an overall outlook for the rest of the year and what it looks like to you.
Yeah, I just think that there is so much opportunity out there. When you look at our industry and specifically what's in front of Right at Home and the franchise owners across the US that, are running their businesses, we're just on the cusp, we know, of this boom, right, of seniors that are going to need our support services. And we know that the first baby boomers, they're just turning 80 in 2025 and going forward. So we've got this big demand. And yes, we've got, as an industry and as a country, we have this math problem about not an equal boom behind the baby boomers in terms of workers. And so we're constantly are going to have to be working at being that employer of choice in local markets. So we talk a lot with franchise owners about that, being that employer of choice, being the brand and the local office that caregivers want to work for, because we know there's not enough caregivers out there. So if prospects have heard about this caregiver shortage and think, okay, well, how are you going to solve it, Margaret, or Right at Home? My answer is there's not a silver bullet. The solution is being that employer of choice. But we're seeing caregivers wanting to work for the Right at Home brand because of the things that we've been focusing on over the years in what I call kind of micro experiences, and finding those caregivers and then retaining. So retention's so important there. But I just came back from spending time in Washington, D.C. last week, and there was an advocacy day that was brought about from the National Home Care Association that we're a part of, and we pay for all of our franchisees to be a part of it. And it's called the Home Care Association of America, or HCAOA. So they facilitated a lobby day where we came and went to DC and spent time meeting with the legislators on both the House and the Senate to really talk about and continue to elevate their own knowledge about home care and what that means and what the important role is that we play in that entire healthcare ecosystem. And we are a solution to this aging challenge that we as a country face, and quite frankly, we as a globe face. So even our international presence in the other countries that we operate in, they're facing the same challenges of an aging population and not enough caregivers. And so we continue to advocate, but it's such a great industry to be a part of, because you can touch lives in such a meaningful way, not just the seniors or those disabled adults that we can take care of, but the caregivers you can employ, the office staff you can employ. And it really is a fabulous industry, and we're just getting started.
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Margaret. This has been an awesome conversation. Let's do this again sometime.
Absolutely.
How about next month? We can talk all about home improvement, because home improvement will have been behind us. And I'm super excited for that. We're going to have lots to talk about next month, just on the heels of home improvement. So
perfect. Well, thank you for the opportunity.
Yes. Thanks, Margaret. Have a great day.
Yep. You too.
All right. Goodbye.
Bye.